If you look at the statistics now, everyone can pluck a statistic to make a point. So someone will have a counter statistic, but someone, I can't remember where I read it, but reckons that probably 90% of all churches around the world would be less than 200 people ish. Do you know what I mean? That's the sort of size. That's a lot of smaller churches. And again, Carl Vaters in his book Grasshopper Myth, he says people choose to go to a small church for various reasons.
Yeah,
some of them would include easier making of friendships and relationships with people. So a small church will rise and fall not on its vision, but its relationships, because there's less people. And so the relationships are formed in a different way. Obviously, bigger churches can keep driving forward because of the vision, and the relationships may not need to be quite so strong, but there will be very strong relationships in that church. But the focus will be different. And many people choose a small church on purpose. So I think in his book, he talks about the people that drive past the big mega church to go to the small church the next block. Why? Because they want to be pastored by the pastor. They want to be cared for by the elders, not the pastoral team or and there's an understanding in that of the way that God has ordained leadership in a church, actually. So people want to be pastored by the pastor, the person who has been set apart by God to care for the church. So you might be in a church, if you're listening to this, that's quite small, but you hang out in the house of the church leader because you know that God's raised them up to lead that church, and you can gain something for spending time with them. Whereas in a mega church or a big church, you may have to go through multiple layers of leadership to even have time spent with the church pastor. And actually the church pastor pastors a team, and that's his church or her church. And then they lead others who are in different areas. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
There's an element of, we live in a world where we're bombarded with big, but at the end of the day, when it comes to a church context, we want to be led by God-ordained, released leaders who can speak into our lives and not just get that from the preaching on a Sunday. We want to spend time in their lives, seeing them work it out. Now, that's scary for a church leader, but you, maybe you're a young person, if you want to grow in your faith, you want to spend time with men and women who are involved in leading and at the front edge. And you don't want to just hear what they have to say about the Bible. You want to see what their life says about the Bible and about how it is to be a follower of Jesus. And you can gain snippets of that through preaching from the big platform, but you gain so much more by having dinner with someone. And so I think that's an advantage of the smaller context that enables personal growth as for us as followers of Jesus.
Dave, so good. I want to share a few quotes because if anyone listens to this podcast, they would know I'm a bit of a quote fiend. In Planting Missional Churches, Ed Stetzer and Daniel Im talk about the fact that God used the mega church to reach Korea and the house church to reach China. So, and then they say this: the lesson here is to hold models loosely and the gospel firmly. I love that. To hold the good news of Jesus firmly. Also, I guess I want to preface these other two quotes with a question, which we'll talk about. We've kind of touched on it, but I want to really dig into this. What we're saying is that big churches can be great, but they can be bad. Small churches can be great, but can be bad. So we're saying that size isn't the measure of success. So the question is, what is the measure of success?